Good evening and welcome to the April 23rd, 2025 Board of Douglas County Commissioners 5:30 business meeting. Paper copies of the agenda are available for those here in person, and the full packet is available on our website. Reviewing our agenda, first we'll consider our consent agenda. There are 2 items on that agenda. After our consent agenda, we'll move to general public comment. We welcome general public comment for addressing issues not on today's agenda, but otherwise related to county business. Given our limited time and the need to have an orderly and efficient meeting, we will apply certain rules regarding public comments. We'll do our best to enforce these rules consistently and without regard to the point of view expressed by the speaker. Here are the rules. 1, each speaker is limited to a total of 3 minutes of speaking time. However, we will accept public comment of any length in writing. 2, individual speakers may not donate unused time to other speakers. 3, all comments must address topics within the jurisdiction of the County Commission. And 4, we reserve the right to mute or remove any speaker whose comments are threatening, aggressively hostile, or belligerent. Campaigning for public office during public comment period is not allowed. Please give your full name and address for our meeting minutes and address your comments to the Commission. Please also know that comments received by the Commission during our meetings do not necessarily represent the views of Douglas County government, but we value the input. We don't usually respond to general public comments on the spot, but if you'll leave your contact information with county staff, we will try and get specific questions answered. After that, we'll move to our regular agenda. There are 2 items on our regular agenda. The first is considering a text amendment for home occupation standards and the registration process. And the second will be an executive session for consultation with our county counselor. For each action item, for the first action item, we will hear from staff or the applicant, followed by questions from the Commission, then open the item up for public comment relevant to that item. Once public comment is closed, we'll bring the item back up to the Commission for further discussion and a vote. Lastly, the recording of this meeting will be available on the county's YouTube page and website. With that, Commissioners, we don't have any proclamations tonight. We have 2 items on the consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull an item from the consent agenda for further discussion? Seeing none, anyone in the public like to remove an item on the consent agenda for further discussion? Anyone online, Sarah? Okay, Commissioners, I'd take a motion on the consent agenda.
Commissioner Reed moved to approve 1.1 and 1.2.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. We'll move on to general public comment. If there's anyone here at the courthouse who'd like to provide general public comment, now would be the time. Step up to the podium. Please make sure you let us know your name and address for our minutes. Ellen, make sure you and push the button. Everybody's going to help you here. Yeah, there you go.
Supposed to push the button.
There you go.
My name is Ellen Johnson. I actually live at 861 Webster in Topeka, but I kind of think you guys are the only ones with the guts to do this. And I'm here to ask you to adopt a resolution asking our reps in DC to urge the House Judiciary Committee in Washington to investigate the president for the numerous crimes and impeachable offenses he's committed while in office. And I've drafted a simple resolution for you to consider. I used a model that was the basis for similar resolutions adopted by governing bodies of cities and towns and counties across the country during the successful 2017 impeachment effort. This resolution doesn't cite specific charges, but I've provided written materials in support of charges which are justifiable and defensible, and my research into definitions, Supreme Court rulings, and international law. These are just suggestions. Truly, you have a smorgasbord to choose from, and I trust you to choose well. When a president commits an impeachable offense, it is our duty to take swift and decisive action for justice. This is sensible, logical, and an effective means to this end. You have influence and your voice is heard with our representatives in Washington, so I urge you to adopt such a resolution in defense of the people you represent. So why am I coming to you? Like I said, I don't think anyone else has the guts. Lead the way and others will follow. I have to admit that until this day, I have been a coward. It is with deep shame and sorrowful remorse that I tell you that I have been spineless and I have been silenced by fear under this fascist regime. Before I tell you my story, I admit that I wonder when I leave this room, will I have my own family's blood on my hands? But I know with absolute certainty that should I cower further, that I will absolutely have blood on my hands for now and forever, that of my countrymen. My mother, a United States citizen, traveled with another citizen to the border earlier this year to accompany two family members to a U.S. port of entry to declare themselves as refugees seeking asylum. They fled their country under duress when bombs destroyed their home, and ICE agents immediately arrested and detained everyone. My mother was handcuffed, detained, and interrogated for hours. They released the citizens, but the refugees were transferred into for-profit ICE prisons where they remain to this day, and they have been threatened with deportation back to Ukraine. And it has only now dawned on me the gravity of all this. If I were someone in front of a truck knowing that they would be run over and killed, then I would be a murderer. So what's the difference then when our government forces refugees to return in shackles to a war-torn country and stand under bombs? There is none. This is a murderous regime with murderous intent. Opponents say that this is too soon, a waste of time, and it will alienate people. But to that I say it is never too soon to act. To that I say now is not the time to win friends and influence people. Now is not the time to grovel, run, or play dead. Now is the time to fight. I've resolved to cower no longer, and I've resolved to become, through civil action, a metaphorical weapon against this regime, as should you. This resolution is your ammunition, and the target is clear.
Any other public comment? Anyone online, Sarah? Okay, we'll close public comment and move on to our regular agenda to consider a text amendment AMDT 24-1001 to revise the home occupation standards and registration process. Carl Bauer is here. Welcome back, Carl.
Thank you, and good evening, commissioners. As you mentioned, my name is Carl Bauer. I'm the county planner with the Douglas County Zoning and Codes Department. This is an amendment to change the standards and review process for home occupations. So for some background and some review, staff has been working on this for several years up to this point. The last major change to the home occupation regulations was in the year 2000, and we have had a lot of societal changes since that time, so there have been some changes necessary. So staff developed draft regulations based on discussion from a work session that you had back in September of 2023, as well as input from the proprietors of these businesses, as well as looking at regulations in neighboring communities. The board initiated the text amendment back in July of 2024, and then just this last December, the Planning Commission unanimously voted to recommend approval of those regulations. Then that first draft was brought back to you on January 29th. You ultimately deferred action so that staff could gather more information on the amendment revision process, as well as to explore some ways that the regulations could be more permissive of automotive and welding related businesses. Staff has also been monitoring a bill that's been working its way through the state legislature that would make so-called no impact home occupations a permitted use statewide. That bill passed in the state house, but died in committee in the Senate. But we're continuing to monitor developments on that front. So overall, the general changes that are being proposed with the home occupations text amendment, type 1 occupations would be considered a permitted use by right, so long as the proposed standards are met. Registration would no longer be required. Type 1 is intended for the really low impact uses. Also, type 1 home occupations would be allowed to use 400 square feet of an accessory structure. Currently, they're only permitted within a dwelling. Third, there would no longer be a acreage minimum for type 2 home occupations. There's currently a 5-acre minimum. And then registration would go for 1 year to 2 years, and the maximum area of an accessory building for a type 2 home occupation would be removed. Currently, it's at 3,600 square feet. Since our last meeting back in January, staff studied the regulations and explored some ways to be more permissive of automobile and welding related uses. So we came up with 7 changes, 4 of them related to those automotive and welding uses, and then a few additional changes on top of that. The first change is adding language that specifies that welding is a permitted use when it's done in conjunction with an otherwise permitted use. Automotive upholstering has been removed from the prohibited uses list. The zoning and codes director would be able to place conditions on type 2 home occupations to potentially mitigate any impacts, set hours, that kind of thing. One of the other changes was changing the text uses prohibited as home occupations to uses deemed not to be a home occupation. The intent of that is to soften the language, and it would give the zoning and codes director some more discretion to consider small scale auto repair and welding businesses on a case by case basis, so that if they could prove that they satisfy all the standards, they could potentially register as a home occupation. A few other changes: vacation rentals have been removed from the list of prohibited uses. That was mainly intended to reduce confusion, since vacation rentals were on the list of prohibited uses before the changes have been made. That's on the list right now. This is mainly just to reduce confusion, since now we have a separate registration process for those. We also updated the definitions for type 1 and type 2 home occupations in the definitions section of the code. That's modified to reflect that a type 1 home occupation may now use a portion of an accessory building, and the list of typical uses was also removed from the definitions. That's mainly to reduce confusion, so we don't have lists in two places. And then the permitted use table will also be changed to reclassify home occupations as an accessory use, to just clarify that the property is used as a dwelling first and a home occupation second. So just to review the text amendment process, there's a section of the zoning code that outlines this process. As the Board of County Commissioners, you have the authority to approve with modifications, deny, or return the item to the Planning Commission with specific instructions. We reached out to the county's legal counsel regarding the modifications process. Those modifications don't necessarily need to be sent back to the Planning Commission, but you may choose to refer those modifications back to them if further study is needed. Then going back to the review criteria within the zoning code, there are specific review criteria regarding changes to the zoning code. Staff reviewed the changes with those criteria and found that all of them were met, including the criteria that requires conformance with the comprehensive plan. There are several places within the zoning code that, within the comprehensive plan that promote home occupations. And with that, Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of this item, and I have the recommendation for a motion for you as well. With that, I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Carl. Commissioners, any questions? Carl, I just have one question on the additional item on 10 about that the Director of Zoning and Codes may apply conditions to the registration. Was there any thought about what happens if somebody doesn't agree with those, or?
If the director were to apply conditions to
Yeah.
something, that's
Yeah.
something we would definitely be working with the applicant as we're developing those. There is an appeals process that's within the text amendment, but that's generally something that we would want to avoid
Yeah.
if at all possible. So when we come up with those conditions, that tends to be a compromise or something that's worked out between our office and the applicant.
Yeah, so there's an appeals process, and they could
There's an
just be
appeals process.
Okay, and that appeals process covers everything that's in that decision. Okay, great. All right, there's no other questions. We'll open it up for public comment. Anyone here, public comment? Anyone online? Bring it back to the commission for any further questions, discussion, or motions.
I just want to say thank you. At the last meeting, we had a lot of questions and comments for you both. And obviously we sent it back to the Planning Commission. And so just really appreciate the due diligence and the time that you all took to take all of our comments and our questions and then to apply all of that. So I personally see that you've actually taken all of that and you've really built it into this, and just really appreciate the forethought that you've actually put into this document. I see everything that I brought forward in what you've actually presented, and really appreciate the work.
I do just want to clarify, this did not go back to the Planning Commission, so this was sort of adjusted with staff. So I just want to be clear with that.
I'm also really
Thank
happy
you.
with the changes and feel like they reflect what we were looking for. So appreciate the work.
Either of you like to make a motion then?
I would. I move to approve the proposed text amendment, AMDT 24-1001, revising section 12-306-21 and omitting section 12-306-22 of the zoning regulations with changes to the standards and review process for home occupations based on the language in the resolution, and adopt resolution number 25-19.
I second.
There we go. Got a motion and a second. Hope you got that, Robin. That was pretty quick. Any further discussion, commissioners? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thanks, Carl. Thanks, Tanya. Okay, our next item is for executive session for the purpose of consultation with the county counselor on matters which would be deemed privileged, and I have a motion for that. I move that we recess to executive session, discuss pending litigation. Justification is for consultation with legal counsel, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship. Attending the executive session will be Attorney Michelle Stewart, Douglas County Counselor John Bullock, and County Administrator Sarah Plinsky. No action will be taken during the executive session, and we will return to our open meeting in this room at 6:10 p.m.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have returned from executive session, and I'm making a motion to extend our executive session by 10 minutes.
Second.
Moved and seconded. We will return that would be a return at 6:20. Commissioners, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we've returned from executive session. We didn't have any action after that. We'll move on. That closes our general business for this evening. Appointments. Commissioners, I did talk to Steve Munch. He would like to continue. He really enjoys the sort of problem solving that comes with planning commission work. I recognize that everyone that comes to the planning commission, every item is a little bit different, and also has, just so you're aware, he has some concerns about how sometimes the role of planning commissioners, what is their role, how political does it get? And I encouraged him to take a little bit more maybe of a leadership role in that. And so I appreciated that he was open to hearing that feedback. And so that sort of summarizes my conversation with him. He would be happy to serve again if we reappoint him. Anybody, go ahead.
I would be glad to keep him. Yeah, I think he's played a good role there, and I agree, would like to see him step into a greater leadership role there. He's willing.
If anybody has any concerns, I'll make a motion to reappoint Steve Munch to the Planning Commission.
Second.
Seconded. Any other comments, concerns, questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? 5-0. Okay. Any other appointments?
Yeah, Sarah approached me about a candidate to replace an opening effective June 1st on the Lawrence Douglas County Housing Group. And I contacted Hannah Bolton to see if she was interested. She said she was. She had one concern. She's also on the board of tenants to homeowners. I talked to Shannon Uri about that, and she said that's not an issue because they work with that group closely. And Shannon and Hannah have worked closely together on a number of projects. So Shannon was very supportive of her candidacy. If you want some biographical information, I can tell you a little bit about Hannah. I don't know how many of you know her or not. She's the principal of Cardinal Properties, which owns the house across the street that's going to be a sober living home. And then along with her mother and her aunt, they have 2 homes on Ohio Street that will be turned into apartments for sober living. When she was at KU, she was the president of the student body while she was there, and she worked for KU Endowment for 6 or 7 years and was instrumental in getting the new business building up. So if you want more information, I can get an official resume from her, or if you're willing to go with her, I'll nominate her tonight.
I'd be willing to second that if there aren't reservations from other commissioners. I really appreciate that, Commissioner Dorsey, and thanks for the bio too. I learned some things about Hannah, who I've known for a while, but yeah, if Shannon doesn't have any concerns about any potential conflict of interest there, I appreciate that you did your diligence in checking that and that Hannah flagged it, but since you cleared that, I'd be happy to second a motion.
Well, I'll so move.
I have a little discussion there. First of all, Hannah is a fantastic nomination for that, and she would bring a lot to the table. Before we make a nomination on something that's a county-wide body, I'd sure like to know what the geographic distribution of current board members are to make sure that we're covering the Douglas County part of the Lawrence Douglas County.
Well, I don't know where the other folks live, but she lives on the other side of Clinton Lake. In your district, by the way.
And I'm thinking more like they work some in Baldwin City, they work some in Eudora. I don't know that they have much going on in Lecompton, but like I said, she's an excellent candidate. I don't know that we'd do any better no matter where we looked.
So I think I have a motion and a second. And then Commissioner Willie had some questions about.
I'm comfortable to move forward.
Okay, so we're good. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, passes. Any other appointments, commissioners? Anything we're missing, Sarah? Okay, we'll go on to Administrator Miscellaneous and Commissioner Miscellaneous. We should just change that on the agenda form.
Oh.
Go ahead, get us started.
I'll try to do this fast since the thunder is starting to roll out faster. Just a reminder that Tuesday, April 29th will be our County Discovery Day at the Pavilion. So really encourage folks to come. And then I wanted to note under the informational items, we closed our property tax rebate pilot program pool period. 135 applications were received, 109 were qualified for a rebate. In total, $30,624 in property tax relief will be provided. And on average, participants will receive a rebate of 37% of their county's portion of that bill. And then Jake put together some statistics that are attached to the memo that are distributed by geographical area. So you might take a look at those. And then there is also an update on the Wakarusa Vision Plan, just a staff update that want to keep you guys aware of what's going on that project. And our meeting next week is canceled, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Sarah. Commissioners, I wanted to talk a little bit about our schedule in July. I know that seems a long time away, but it's not. We are in budget hearings through the 16th, and we'll meet the evening of the 16th, I think, probably to finalize our budget. That is a month that has 5 Wednesdays in it. I have a opportunity on the 23rd that I wanted to see if maybe we could not meet the 23rd as our fifth Wednesday, and just wanted to check with commissioners on that.
Works for me.
I think it'd be good to have a break after all the budget sessions.
Yeah.
So the
Fine
23rd
by me.
works.
Okay.
Agreed.
Okay.
I'll add that to our calendar.
Sounds great. You okay, Commissioner Dorsey? Yep. Okay, good. Any other miscellaneous items, commissioners?
So looking at the weather, this might come into question, but I think several of us were planning to attend the Douglas County Conservation District Cover Crop Open House.
Oh, yeah.
And that was from 6 to 8, I think, tonight. And I know I was headed there next, but I think there might be several of us.
I'll get it noticed, but you guys did the noticing, right?
I just texted Frank Mail to see if it was raining there, and he hadn't responded yet. So
Cool. All right, there's nothing else. We are adjourned.